Create that life legacy, designers. Amber Prosia here. Welcome to episode number 13 of the Parenting Biz Podcast, coming to you every Monday. Now let's chat with this week's featured guest, Kerri Gardner. Kerri, are you ready to enlighten us on your journey of how you shaped up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Kerri Gardner is the love money coach, author, speaker, wife of 22 years to her best friend Trevor, and mother of their 3 amazing teens. Kerri healed her 15-year battle with hypothyroidism, which I'm so sorry I can't pronounce, by changing her diet to a vegan one, and was a featured writer in the Barefoot Vegan magazine, produced and published in London, England. Kerri is a national certified law of attraction, transformational life coach, and works with overwhelmed women and men who are struggling with their relationship with money and how it impacts their daily lives. Kerri is an optimist, a true leader, and a believer that we can all have our best lives now, regardless of the pain from the past or current circumstances. Kerri believes we live in an abundant world full of exciting new opportunities, and she feels that with the positive, consistent action toward our dreams, you can produce a happier, more fulfilling life of your own design. Outside of the passion of coaching, Kerri lives with her husband Trevor and their 3 teens in a 5th-wheel toy hauler RV, and they're currently in Kentucky as we do this interview. They enjoy traveling the 50 states while learning the rich history in each state, road schooling their children, having a blast while whitewater rafting, zip lining over mountains, and inside caverns and other fun adventures. So Kerri, please take a minute and fill in any gaps from that intro and give us a little glimpse of your own personal life.
No, that pretty much covers it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You're amazing. And just for our listeners to know, Kerri literally is on the road right now. She's in Kentucky, so there might be a 2-3 second delay, so please bear with us through the episode. But we're going to make it work because you can work wherever you are, and Kerri's living proof of it. So thank you so much, Kerri, for being on our show today. It's absolutely an honor to have you here. As you are aware, our listeners are parents or parents-to-be that realize ownership is key to not only to our parenting or business life, but in general, and along that parenting journey, we can lose sight of that. However, if we focus on life as a game, an activity, or a sport, not only can we learn to let go easier, but we can also gain strength from our mistakes and design our core focus to be one of laughter, joy, and most importantly, having fun, just like a 5-year-old kid in the sandbox. So this week, our entire interview will be celebrated around our first jog after the winter season. So welcome to Jog Your Way into a New Relationship with Money. So now you're all aware, guys, this is just an analogy, and we can create and design our lives any way we want. Kerri, this is your chosen activity, so please take us through your daily habits and how you make it work with your life and expertise. So let's start with getting dressed, because we obviously need to start small and focusing on the essentials just for jogging. So Kerri, you're the Love Money coach. Please tell us how this came to be.
The Love Money coach came to be because 5 years ago, my husband and I experienced a horrendous event in our life. It was a foreclosure. And we had lived in the house that we had built and put a hefty sum down for 7 years back in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it was something we'd never experienced before. The company that my husband was working for got bought out. And through that process, everyone got laid off, including himself. And at that time, I wasn't a coach. I was just a newbie realtor. I just literally got my license, and I had been in the field for only 3 or 4 months. And I was actually just starting and building my career at that time. But going through that experience, trying to save our house and going into courthouses for a year, and you know, the stress and the arguments and all that stuff, it really made us look at our lives and say, you know, is this what we're working for? You know, are we working for this big materialistic thing? Are we working just to pay bills? And what example are we showing our children through the stress of all this? So from that experience, we decided to live our life our way, literally created by our own design. And we worked hard for the last 4 years, selling everything, downsizing, selling things on Craigslist and eBay, eventually having a huge estate sale. And that brought us into full-time RV living. And I wanted to have a career. I couldn't be a realtor anymore, and I didn't really care for the industry after a couple of years in it. I wanted to have a career where I could help people, because I've always wanted to help people. And I started off with speaking, and it led into coaching, because I knew I could do that on the road. And I found my passion was really helping people understand that money is really energy, and your energy. And if you're locked into your mindset and how you actually want to create your daily life, you can create anything. And that includes increasing your money and attracting anything you want. And most people are brought up hating it, seeing it as the root of all evil. So I kind of wanted to, my goal is to have people look at money differently, as well as help them change their habits with money, grow their money, help them create a budget, and start designing a life that they'd like to create on a daily basis. That's one of love and fun and excitement, instead of just working to pay the bills.
I love it. That's amazing. Thanks so much, Kerri. How did you get yourself dressed from the start, from the very basics? Like, what were your, like with jogging, right? We only need our running shoes. We can either run in shorts or pants and a workout top. We don't need much. What did you find were the basics to get yourself in that focus, to not, like you said, to have that ricochet onto your children as well, to have that, you know, hate or poor relationship with money, but to one of love and fun and enjoyment that you could actually show them as well? Do you remember what may have been your key basic elements that you started with?
Well, it was educating myself as well, because, you know, like everybody else here, at least in America, you know, you're not taught it in school. You're not taught how to grow your money. You're only really taught how to balance it, you know, accounting. And I realized, you know, through that whole experience, I hated everything that we went through, and I hated money and what it stood for. And I realized I was hating a lot. I was just hating a lot. I was just in this really unhappy mindset and just really despising everything for what we went through, for watching the kids cry, us cry, you know, fights, and losing the house and the memories. You know, I kept thinking the memories and everything we created as a family was wrapped in that roof and four walls. And once we moved out of it and I was away from the situation, I realized, you know, our actions helped in making that happen as well. The final touch was the job loss, but I realized more than anything, you have to change yourself within in order to change your life without. Yeah. So your inner world really is your outer world. And once I started to do some research on how other people overcame a foreclosure, podcasts, I started to get more into the law of attraction, reading The Secret. And I also wrote a book during that time. And I just started to change everything. And that was also a time when my husband said he had enough with the normal everyday going to work, paying the bills. And that experience made him want more. And so he said, you know, and that's how he came up with the RV life. And so we just worked together to create it. And it took us 4 years to do it. But by us changing our mindsets, by us changing what we wanted and making a full decision, it led to making better decisions and setting up goals in order to achieve them, to create this life. So it's really a decision first, and then really building on the mindset and watching your thoughts, because your thoughts do become things. Watching how you're feeling, because your feeling attracts more of what you're feeling. You know, so it was a real kind of like a rebirth. We kind of like had a reboot, I should say, on our life and how we wanted to live it.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that you've actually you wrote a book as well, Kerri. Can you please tell us about that? I'd love to hear about it.
Well, the book's really off topic of what we're talking about here, but essentially it's a memoir, and it's basically about my life and how I overcame a huge adversity of having epilepsy and other things that I did there, and how I fell in love with my husband and how we met. But if it was about money or the law of attraction, I talk more about it, but I just don't want to get off topic, because it really doesn't have any point here for what we're talking about.
No problem. Well, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear about your book at the end, so why don't you save some time to tell us about that? That's no problem.
Sure.
Thanks. And now that you're used to getting dressed, because you're now jogging out on the road, you're in the RV, and you're still making time for exercise and making time for your inner self. What are you finding are your key money strategies or motivators that you can't live a day, a week, or a month without?
Money motivators, setting goals. We kind of do reverse engineering. We see where we want to be in a year and then work backwards. And we want to encourage our kids to work that way too. We want them to be ambitious, and they are, but we want them to really put themselves out there. So money motivators are just like, what do you want out of life? And as much as money is basically a vehicle in order to enjoy the things you want, it also can be used to pay it forward. So that's a motivator as well. The better off you are in your life, you can actually help someone else. Become a philanthropist, just donate anonymously, do charity work, volunteer. It also allows you to have more time, the more you have of it. So it's just, that's kind of like the motivating factor for me. What it will, provide for you, and how can it help others at the same time.
Great. I love it. Let's go into the next element of jogging, and that's consistency and persistence, because these are actually two characteristics that we must master in life to achieve anything we dream of, right? It doesn't matter if it's money or if it's health or whatever it might be. Even in a relationship, we have to be consistent and persistent. So for the majority of us, we don't become rich or wealthy overnight. What were the consistent and persistent habits that you have ingrained within yourself to maintain and go beyond your financial freedom level?
Consistency is, you always need to start with mindset and an attitude of gratitude. Those are the two hugest things always. And then the consistent habits with our money and loving it and seeing what happens for us, what we can do with it, is weekly consistent check-ins with your expenses, online, for us anyway. Some people might do it in a checkbook or statements, but for us it's online checking every single week, and then setting up goals as to the things that we want to accomplish with the money that we've budgeted for that event. So consistency is everything, and you need to be kind of a master of your money in order to not be a slave by it. So you need to know where all your pennies are coming in and going out. And that helps with the consistency as well. Most people have things on autopilot, or they've set up for memberships that they no longer go to, or they bought something that, or they signed up for something that said, after 30 days, we're going to charge you regularly, but they completely forgot about it, and they only wanted to just do a trial run. So you really need to be on top of it. You need to be the master of your money, and that helps you fall back in love with it, because once you're actually in control of it and you're watching it grow and you're spreading it about and you're giving it away or you're investing, it makes it so, just makes your life so much easier.
Absolutely.
And that's the consistency.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. How have you found that these habits of yours and your husband that you're doing on a weekly basis, especially even on the road, how have you seen these habits reflect onto your children? Because obviously your kids are watching you do this all the time. I'm a firm believer of, rather than telling our kids this is what needs to be done, but it's actually showing through your own actions that you and Trevor are demonstrating on a weekly or regular basis. How has that reflected on them?
Money is not a taboo subject in the house, so that's good, because most people don't even talk about it or even show their kids this, because they weren't taught it, and the generation before them didn't teach their parents. So that's really healthy, not to make it a taboo. And so they ask questions all the time, which we're very open with. And what I love is our two oldest girls, from last year, before we went full-time RVing, they had part-time jobs. And so they just did their taxes last week. So that was really cool. And they were asking really good questions. And we had them do it all online by themselves. And if they had a question, they could come to us, or we had them look it up, because we want them to be self-sufficient. And then our son, he's not old enough to work, but he's super clever. They're all clever. And he finds these like apps online that if he answers surveys, or this recent app, it scans all the receipts, and we're buying stuff every single week, like everybody, right? And so it will scan his receipts, and it gives them so many points, and then those points turn into dollars. And what it really is they're taking what is it, like a census. They're finding out your information. They're getting data. We're okay with that. It doesn't really bother us. But I love that he finds these things, either an app to play a game that equals money, or because he watched us for 4 years selling everything on eBay and Craigslist, he found an app that was kind of like more kid friendly for him. And he went through the RV with things that we were not really using, because after like 3 months, you realize what you use all the time or not. And he's like, you haven't used this in a while. Can I sell it? And we're like, sure. And so he started becoming a little entrepreneur. And our daughter just opened up an eBay store, and she's selling all the clothes that she realized she's not going to be using or hasn't used over the last 10 months that we've done this in the RV. And they all have YouTube channels, so that, they want to make an income off of YouTube. And I'm just really proud of them, because they've taken what they've seen for us, and, they're like small budding entrepreneurs. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. And it's so true. It's just taking advantage of the opportunities that are at hand for the kids now. It's a completely different world nowadays. So it's amazing that is ricocheting. And you and Trevor should be so proud of yourselves, because like you said, money is usually a taboo conversation in a household, and it doesn't have to be. And it's really up to the parents to being open and speaking about it, or demonstrating it, and getting comfortable with their relationship with money first, so that they don't have a problem communicating that with their kids. So I think that's amazing.
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's move into the next element of jogging, and that's no excuses. So you can be active anywhere you are, literally, and you're on the road, and you're living proof of that. So just like taking ownership and responsibility of our own money results, because if you think about it, if you want a scorecard, like in school, kids get a report card, and that shows their results based on what their efforts are. But if you're now in a business and you're a parent, if you want a scorecard, literally look at your paycheck each month. And that's telling you how successful your business is going and how much value you're actually giving to people. So for those who may not be overly thrilled with their current results, or know they can do better, what would you recommend they do? Like, do you have a particular program that you take your clients through to achieve these levels of success, or would you recommend something else?
Well, first, normally my clients, the overwhelmed mom and dads, or just singles, everyone has money, so it doesn't really matter if you're a family or not, or just a married couple. Normally you're taking two people who have two separate lives, who have been brought up separately, and putting them together. And then, they're trying to figure out how to do money together based on the programming and the paradigms, the habits that they were taught, right? So that either is a recipe of, what is the word I'm looking for? Compromise, or recipe of disaster.
Yeah.
And so you kind of need to take these two people, or even if it's just yourself, and you were never, like, money was taboo, and so you never spoke about it. So now you're really just driving with blinders on. And so you need to realize, how do you feel about money? Because it's a relationship, like a relationship with a person. Money is energy, and it is a relationship. You either hate it, you respect it, or you're terrified of it. And so you need to figure out where you are with that first. You need to get rid of these blocks, because the block is basically a thought that has been repetitively taught to you, or you've listened to or witnessed, and that's how you come up with what you should be doing with this money. And once we get through that, then we're at the foundation, at ground zero, and we can say, okay, now take these steps that my husband and I have personally taken in order to get out of our foreclosure incident. We literally lost our credit scores. We lost our savings. We lost everything. We had to rebuild our lives. It's taken 5 years of rebuilding, and we're still rebuilding. I mean, officially for your credit history, it's 7 years with our foreclosure. So we're still working on it. Even though we're at a good point now compared to 5 years ago, we still have to work at it. So there's consistency there. And once you get to that point, with being completely at ground zero, you say, okay, here's the steps we took, and which I have a gift that I give my clients when they come to my page, and they're just kind of checking out what I do, and if I can be of service to them. And it's called the 9 Simple Steps to Grow Your Money. And so first we work with the mindset, and then we look at your budget, and then we start seeing where you have leaks, where are you losing money, how much money is coming in, are you more debt to income ratio, things like that. And when you get through all these steps, you're getting them back on track as to how to grow their money and manage it, and most importantly, appreciate it, respect it, give new energy to it. And then then I put them up to the next step, which is the 12-step signature program, which we're going to be calling Money Matters, that we're working on, and we're going to have it ready in June. And that would be taking those 9 steps, but expanding it, going even deeper over a 12-week process. And then that would really set them up to, it definitely should set them up to be in the driver's seat again, really, and just to build on that, and to really grow their money, appreciate it, and just have some really amazing changes in their life.
Brilliant. And what I'll even do for our listeners is I'll even put that link to your website so that they could actually go in and download the 9, your PDF from your website. So I'll put that in the show notes so you guys don't miss out on that, because it's
absolutely
brilliant.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks for putting out that free gift. We really appreciate it. How has the money management system?
Absolutely.
Thanks. How has that money management system that you've put in place with your husband that you've found now, looking back and giving yourself that forefront hindsight effect, how has that affected your relationship? Did it bring you guys closer together? You know, the fact that you guys get to work on it together, which is brilliant, but, you know, imagining what if you didn't do that? Where would you guys be, and how has it brought you guys today?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been super close, and that experience as a whole brought us together. Even though I think that could be definitely a grounds for divorce for some people, depending on the situation. But through that experience, we've worked even as a team. Like, because you're building this dream together, going full-time RVing. Like, every single week, we would, nonstop, be back on the computer after the kids went to bed, to start doing our eBay. You know, we'd start listing more things to sell, and I'd be on Craigslist listing more things to sell. And then we had yard sales. And then, like I said, eventually the estate sale. And so through all that process, in hindsight, that has brought us together, because we were working on a goal together. And the goal was to sell everything we owned and to have a life by our own design by being in this RV and traveling to 50 states. It has brought us together. It's been really great. You know, we're not perfect. Our goal is to look at our expenses every week. Sometimes we might get too busy and we have to catch up the following week. But it's just another bonus as being a couple and having the right mindset together, and seeing the goal and just working as a team to achieve it. So it's been a bonus.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's really great to see too, because, you know, you're not going to be one of those statistics that will get a divorce based on finances, because that is unfortunately very, very high in today's society, when it doesn't have to be, right? It's just individual ownership and then working together as a team, like you said. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go into the next element of jogging, which is chatting while jogging. Now, of course, if you want a solid workout, then we wouldn't be in a position to be able to actually talk. But this is also, if you think of it as an indicator of how much we're actually pushing ourselves to our full potential. So throughout your experience, I know you've touched down on the law of attraction and your mindset, but how has the mindset and limiting beliefs affected people's lives and their business careers as a coach looking in at clients?
Yeah, it can cripple them. I mean, if they're so pre-programmed to all these limiting beliefs, if they really don't believe it, then they're not going to push forward. So sometimes it has to get to the point where they believe that you believe it. Mm-hmm. And by them realizing you believe in them, then we actually can turn a corner. So it is severe, because I mean, these mindsets, the blocks can come as early as being 2 years old from any experience that you've witnessed, because the only example you have all those years for the first 18, 20 years is mostly your parents, what's happening inside the house. And then, of course, it's school, grandparents, additional family members, and society, news, etc. So it is, you need to really tap into what's holding you back. And it could be really devastating to release a memory that was something that you saw as a young child, but you've, kind of made it compressed into something else, and that's affected you. You know, I actually had a client whose family were going through a lawsuit for, I forget what the reason was, but it was the whole family against another family member. So, there was a big, big problem there. But the end result was she and her siblings and her parents won a windfall of, I think they all got like $450,000 or something like that. Like it was around that number. And when she started talking with me, I said, "Oh my God, I had no idea. Congratulations." She goes, "Well, that was a year ago and it's all gone."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Excuse me?" I just couldn't fathom how you could get rid of, and that's what she did. She physically got rid of this money any which way she could, because in whatever she was pre-programmed to hate it, despise it, see it as the root of all evil, she did. And when she started talking to me, she broke down crying, because she's like, "Oh my God, I could do so much more good with that. My husband and I could probably take an early retirement, all this other stuff." And it was from what was pre-programmed. So, we need to really break down into these money blocks. And then it's also self-love, because, all that information as a child gets jumbled up. It's like when some person starts at the grapevine with, so to speak, when you're in a line with kids, so to speak, and someone starts with one word and you're supposed to pass that word over. And by the time you get to the end of the 20th child, it's not even what the word was at the beginning. It's completely jumbled and something else.
Yeah.
And that's like your money blocks. What you saw as a child, what you witnessed, or what you heard, or what you thought you heard, and how you process that really can affect you with self-love, as well as with how you feel about money. Absolutely.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing the example as well, because it really puts it in context of just what we actually do as individuals. And it's actually ingrained in our subconscious. And so even if we don't know it, but yeah, so that's really great. I know you mentioned a couple times money blocks. Would you be able to elaborate on, for our listeners, a couple examples of money blocks, or also how to actually literally overcome those money blocks, or what you do to work with your clients to find their money blocks, and or how to overcome them?
Sure. I mean, it starts off with asking questions, like, how do you feel about money? What is money? What were you brought up thinking about money? What does money mean to you and your family? So those are like the basic questions. And then the second one is, how do you spend money? When you learn how someone spends money, or how they, if they're a saver or spender, then you break that up, because then that tells you how they were taught on the money. And that's a block there too. And then you ask them, okay, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it? Or would you want the $1 million? Because some people are afraid to even be rich and successful, because they might have heard a grandparent or a mother say, "Oh, they're just like this person, so and so, and that person's evil." And instead of appreciating and respecting the person that might be a mentor, and you want to be where they are, maybe not the same lifestyle, but just having that level of income can cause you to self-sabotage as well. So it's just asking a level of different questions based on how they're using money today in their, at their present day, what they heard as a child, and how does it make them feel? If money makes them feel dirty, if money makes them feel corrupt, if money makes them feel like, "Oh my God, it's the root of all evil," or are they complete opposite, and they're like, "Oh, I was grow up, we spoke about it, and I have to love money because I know money loves me, and I know I can do so much with money, because this is just a vehicle, it's energy, and the more I spend, it just multiplies, and I just get more back, and I can do more good." It just really depends on the person and their upbringing. And I just dive deeper and deeper into asking these questions, because the bottom line is, what do they want? Why do they want it? And how do they want to feel? And when it comes to money in their life, then you kind of mesh those things together, and you really get deep and get that answer. And then you can break it up. And once you start breaking that up, you just need to do daily affirmations or affirmations. Like the affirmations is, I am, and fill in the blank. I am a millionaire. I am, whatever it may be for you. Or the affirmations is, I'm happy because of, like I go jogging every day. That makes me happy. Or I'm happy because I have a family that loves me, and we're healthy, or whatever it may be. Those positive affirmation and affirmations can help you change your mindset too. And today I actually did a money, I do a money mindset every Wednesday on Facebook. And today was all about, you have the power of managing to train your mind. And people think sometimes they just don't, and they totally can. Your brain is a muscle. It needs to get worked out every day, just like the rest of you do. And so I was chanting that what we call with the law of attraction, one of the processes is rampage of appreciation. And one of the helpful kind of money blockers, or get rid of the money block, so to speak, is everything is working out for me. I trust in the universe and everything is working out for me. Even if I think or I can't see that everything is going my way, I know that everything is working out for me. And you just keep telling yourself that everything is always working out for you. And it's just an amazing energy changer. And you start to really get rid of those repetitive negative thoughts that were programmed and making that money block happen.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kerri. That was incredible, and I'm sure our listeners just was taking a ton of notes or wish they had a notepad by listening to that, because it is simply asking those powerful questions and being honest with ourselves, right? And it's not about blaming or thinking, oh, this is where I'm at, or I didn't know that. You can change it. You all have the power to change it. So it's really remarkable that you brought that all up. I really appreciate it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask if there's anything else you want to add from today's interview, but we're not gonna wrap up completely yet because I want to go off topic a little bit too. So, just in regards for money and jogging, is there anything else you want to add to today's interview?
Nope. I'm glad we covered the free gift, the 9 simple ways to grow your money. I was gonna put that in there, but we've already talked about that, so that's good. And I also offer free. Not all the time, you got to schedule it, but it's a complimentary talk with me for 40 minutes. So they're welcome to schedule that with me as well. It's all about life and money. So if you're ready to get off your butt, so to speak, and get going on changing that and improving it, I'm here to help. So I would love that if they're interested.
Fantastic. What I'll do is I have that link already, I believe. It's on your website, isn't it? I saw that little button for it, that they can literally go into it. So I'll put that in the show notes as well for our listeners. Fantastic. We'll wrap up for the jogging aspect, but I really want to go off topic and hear about your book, please. And I also have one other random question, because with your hypothyroidism, I want to know, are you still a vegan on the road? So hopefully you don't mind answering those 2 last questions. And then please let us know how we can get in touch with you. What's the best way for our listeners? Because I'm sure they're dying to know, how can they exactly get in touch with you? So whichever way you want to start.
Yeah, sure. So are we a vegan? Yes. We're pretty much like 95% vegans and 5% fish. We got rid of fish for a couple of years and then we started missing it again. And I know that people who are vegan might be in arms and going, oh my God, how can you do that? And I totally agree with you, and you can be mad at me. I'm very sorry. But every now and again we do get a salmon or mahi or whatever, or shrimp. And it's not all the time, but it's a couple of times a month. But mostly everything is plant-based, and I love it. And it did help cure my hypothyroidism. I had hypothyroidism for 15 years, and it was induced by the first pregnancy of our daughter. We actually thought I was going through MS, and then they said, well, maybe you have cancer. And I went through seriously 2, almost 3 months worth of testing until they finally figured out, because then they thought it was thyroid cancer. And then they realized it was hypothyroidism. And, for 15 years being on that pill to control it was just very frustrating for me, because I was, when I was a kid, I had epilepsy due to a head injury. And I was on those pills for 7 years, and I really hate taking pills because of that experience. And so I was determined to heal myself, mind over matter type of thing, and do it the best way possible that I could think of. And for me, it was, taking my veganism and just making it even work for me, all shapes and bounds. And so it took about 4 years, like the last 4 years of those 15, to eat more things, do more research and things like that. I got into Shakeology, and then juicing and things like that. And then I just started to feel different. And I was like, I know I've cured myself. So I literally took almost 3 months, and I started to wean myself off my pills without telling my doctor. And I don't recommend that to anybody, but that's what I did. And I went to the doctor for my annual checkup, and I said, I know I'm cured. So just let's run my blood work and we'll be done with these pills. And she came back, she goes, yeah, your thyroid's working fine. So, that was pretty awesome. And I attribute that to being a vegan. Absolutely.
And how is it, do you find, I think that's incredible, first off, such an inspiring story for especially anyone out there. that may just be open to check what vegan is and, eating whole foods and plant-based diets, or not even really a diet, a lifestyle, because that's really what it becomes. How has it been eating vegan on the road, especially throughout the States? It must be a little bit of a challenge, or how have you guys gotten around that?
Yeah, it has been a challenge. Like certain areas of the country, like for example, we haven't been to California like with the RV. We've been there before, when we were doing every normal day life and go there for vacation for Disneyland or a conference or something. Certain areas of California just are like popping with veganism. You know what I mean? It's like the thing, you're a vegan or you're not, but mostly you are. And then when we went to New York back in September, I couldn't get over how many vegan restaurants were there and shops and things. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. It's really becoming a thing. And we noticed about 5 years ago in like wholesale stores like BJ's Wholesale, they started catering to vegan. And now I'm seeing it everywhere. But on the road, the thing is, different states have different stores. So we've kind of gotten a habit of realizing when we're south, these are the stores we need to look for, like Kroger. Has a section for vegan, and that's been quite helpful. Food Line has a small section. Of course, our main stores are Whole Foods, but you can't always find them throughout the state. And depending on where we are, it could be a 2 or 3 hour drive. So we try to bulk up and use, we don't have a lot of space in here. You're talking 37 feet. So we're a family that actually budgets our meals as well. And we actually write them out weekly. When we lived in a house, and had a big refrigerator and a pantry, we would actually budget our meals for the month. We'd write out a monthly menu, set the money aside, and just go to Trader Joe's and BJ's and Whole Foods and get the main things that were dry goods and freezer, and do that. And then during the week, we would just get the perishables. So that's how we've managed to do it. We just kind of say what is around us, and we look for the stores that we know have our particular brands, or just, everyone has produce, so that's easy. Beans are always available, things like that. But we have certain brands we use to make chilies and stews and things like that, and shepherd's pie, and it's all vegan, and it's gorgeous. What was I going to say? Oh, my daughter actually found an app that can actually tell you, and I'll have to email it to you. She's not in the RV right now, but that will tell you where the local vegan restaurants are, or certain stores in the area. So that's been helpful too.
Yeah, massive. That's great. I love that you guys are actually still keeping up with your lifestyle, even on the road. Because like you said, you may have to switch it a little bit. Rather, you can't bulk up as much as you would if you were in home with the refrigerator, but you can still make it work, and you just have to be versatile and adaptable. So I love that you guys are doing that. Really inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. And Kerri, please tell us a little bit about your book, if you don't mind, because I did check it out, and I feel like our listeners would be really interested in hearing about it. I know you've touched on it briefly, but if you wouldn't mind going into a little bit of detail of it, and I'm more than happy to put the Amazon link on the show notes too, so people can actually buy it if they like.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'm proud of my book. It's like my fourth baby. I wrote that during a time of transition after the foreclosure, because that was like before we left Raleigh in 2013. That was about around the time that my daughter's best friend from school committed suicide, and at age 13 in 7th grade, and that was the same age and grade year when I attempted to commit suicide. And the reason I attempted to commit suicide is I'm not a mental case or anything, and I'm not saying everybody is. There's all different situations for why it happens. I mean, a lot of people blame it on mental health, and I don't believe in that. I believe there's a variety of reasons, and you can't just label it, So for me, I was telling you earlier that I didn't like taking pills because I had epilepsy as a child for 7 years. And that epilepsy happened when I was 2. I was kicked in the head by a pony when I was visiting my family up in Maine with my father. He was supposed to be taking care of us, but we just arrived after like a 6+ hour drive, and he was talking with his family. And as 2-year-olds, they just wander. And so I wandered into the corral, and this pony was not liking that I was there, and he pretty much trampled me down. He almost killed me, but I was fine after the doctors and everything, but fast forward 4 years later, I started to have my first seizure, and they didn't understand why until they did MRIs and EKGs and all that stuff. And they realized from the injury when I was 2 created scar tissue, and that scar tissue acted like a wall in certain areas of my brain, and my brain would literally seize and cause the seizure. So the seizure, the only way to control them, because I was a growing early elementary kid. I don't know what the stage of a childhood that is, but basically at the age of 6, I had a lot of growth to still do. And they put me on phenobarbital, which is a massive antidepressant and a barbiturate. And it doesn't just depress the seizures, it depresses everything. So on top of being a depressed kid from the seizures, I also was living in a very dysfunctional home. My parents were divorced. My father's very abusive. I wasn't doing great in school because it affected my learning. I had major learning disabilities. And I was angry all the time, too. It made me very angry being on these pills because I always felt short. I always felt in the sense of I couldn't be like all the other kids, and I called myself an alien. It was really bad. And by the time I hit 13, 7 years into this, the relationship with my father was deteriorating. My schoolwork and my grades were deteriorating. My relationship with my stepfather was never a good one. He never wanted children. He made that very clear. And then you had my mother who was trying to make it all work. So it was a mess. And by the time I hit 13, I then hit puberty, which brought on my period. And then those hormones, it just felt like I was going to implode in my own body, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And so I decided one night that I had enough, and I was going to just leave this planet. And that's when I thought the main cause of the problem, on top of everything else, was my seizures and my pills. And so I took the remainder of my prescription, that's a magazine, prescription. And it's initially 90, and there was 64 pills left. And I took them all with a big, large glass of orange juice, and I lay down to die. And so the book basically, it was written the day of when I tried to take my life until how I overcame all that. Thankfully, I was saved by my best friend. And 3 months later, my family, and this is after going through a psychiatrist and then being put into a mental health hospital for a month, and then coming out and dealing with a different form of depression because I just couldn't handle being around my friends and my town who knew everything. I'm from a very small town in Massachusetts. So I went into a different type of depression and withdrawal. And I just kind of became a recluse in my room. And my parents decided that to kind of a reboot on our life. So we went to Florida. And that's where I met my husband in a jacuzzi. And I was 13 and he was 15, and he's from England. And I always wanted to marry a British boy because I fell in love with, and I'm not sure if your listeners are as old as me or not, but I'm 44 and I used to watch the Monkees, and I fell in love with Davy Jones. He's the British singer in the band. And so I couldn't believe that I met my own Davy Jones. And so I pretty much was off the drugs, in a different frame of mind, totally happier, was really starting to understand life and myself, and I fell in love. And my husband and I wrote for 7 years snail mail. As we grew up and dated and went to college and all that stuff, we reunited 7 years later and had a 10-day whirlwind romance. And we've been together ever since August 24th, 1994, and got married February 24th, 1996. And we just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary. So it's a story of, going through pure hell, finding yourself, and then self-sabotage, rebuilding your life, falling in love, and reconnecting, and then overcoming. And the reason I wrote it is because I really wanted kids to understand that they really don't have to take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. They can work out and get through it. And with social media and bullying, it was just really important that I did something about that, because I kept thinking, with this little girl who was only 13, and she had her own baggage and her own problems. But I thought if I had met her in person, and I know the signs, could I have been of help? Could I have prevented? Could I have done something to put her in a different direction instead of wanting to end her life? And so that's why I wrote my book.
Amazing. What an inspiration, honestly, Kerri. the book just sounds absolutely incredible, and so glad to have you here today to actually share it with us, because that is a massive, massive accomplishment. And look at what you've actually built from there. And you will be and have and are inspiring so many people to think differently on life. And like you said, it's a temporary problem, but doesn't mean it's permanent. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, thank you so much. That's the end of our show. Please let us know, how can our listeners get in touch with you? And just so you guys know, listeners, I will put it all in our show notes, so you'll have all the links there too. But how can we get in touch with you, Kerri? What's the best way?
The best way is just going to my website, lovemoneycoach.com. So love, L-O-V-E, moneycoach.com. And then when you get to the home page, to the far right will be the buttons for Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And YouTube, I love them all, but YouTube I especially love because we have been filming and recording and created a channel, our Life Unboxed channel on YouTube, for the last 6 months of our adventures, good, bad, and ugly. So, if anyone wants inspiration on how can we create our life by our own design and how do we do this, I hope that's the purpose of why we created it, because we were inspired by other people on YouTube, and we thought, well, if we're going to do this, we might as well show them our crazy lives and who we are and what we do and how we made it happen. So if you wanted to see our adventures on YouTube and through the RV living full time, that's how you can see that as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I actually checked it out the other day as well. It's awesome. So Life Unboxed is their channel name on YouTube. And yeah, no, it's awesome. I love it. I love that you guys are doing little family interviews, and you get to meet all the kids, and I think it's brilliant. Keep at it. Definitely awesome. And I love that you're just putting it out there, like you said, the good, bad, and the ugly, because it's not all perfect, right? So it's fantastic that you're doing
Nope.
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kerri, for being on our show today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We really appreciate you taking the time out on your adventure to be with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, Amber.
You're most welcome. Well, thank you so much, listeners, for listening to today's episode. We appreciate and love you all. If you've enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or follow us on your chosen platform. And of course, share it with anyone that you could see benefiting from it today as well. For those who are brand new to listening to our show, you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Podbean, or Spotify. And we'll be releasing our next episode every single Monday. So look forward to having you guys tune in then. Thanks again, and have a wonderful week. Bye, guys.